How's your happiness project going? Are you climbing that ladder, chasing that promotion, curating that perfect online life, buying that next gadget, hoping this will finally be the thing that brings lasting contentment? We live in a world obsessed with the pursuit of happiness, yet it often feels like we're on a frantic treadmill. More ambition, more possessions, more intense experiences. But does it lead to more stress, more anxiety, more comparison, more feeling like we're somehow falling short? What if the secret to a truly happy, peaceful life isn't about adding more, but about wisely choosing less? What if the path to deep, enduring pleasure lies not in extravagance, but in simplicity? Not in chasing highs, but in cultivating a calm, untroubled state of being. There was a philosopher in ancient Greece who thought deeply about this, who built his entire worldview around achieving sustainable happiness. And his ideas, often misunderstood, might be exactly what our noisy, striving world needs to hear right now. Let's talk about Epicurus and the surprisingly practical art of living well. When you hear Epicurean, what comes to mind? Maybe luxurious feasts, unrestrained indulgence, a pursuit of any and every pleasure? That's a common misconception, one that's persisted for centuries. The reality is far more nuanced and frankly far more useful. Epicurus lived from 341 to 270 BC. In Athens, not far from Plato's academy, he founded his own school, uniquely located in a place called the Garden. This wasn't just a location, it reflected the philosophy itself. It was a calm, welcoming space, open not just to wealthy men, but famously to women and even slaves. A true community centered around friendship and learning how to live happily. So, what was the goal taught in this garden? Epicurus was clear. The ultimate aim of life is pleasure. But hold on. His definition of pleasure wasn't about wild parties or fleeting thrills. For Epicurus, the highest, most desirable pleasure is Ataraxia, a state of serene calmness. Tranquility, freedom from mental disturbance, anxiety, and fear. It's accompanied by Aponia, the absence of physical pain. Think of it less like the giddy excitement of getting a huge promotion, and more like the deep, quiet contentment of a peaceful evening spent with good friends, feeling safe, comfortable, and free from worry. That stable, peaceful state, that was the Epicurean jackpot. To get there, Epicurus realized we need to understand our desires and make wise choices. He saw pleasure not just as adding good feelings, but fundamentally as removing pain and disturbance. He distinguished between two types of pleasure: kinetic pleasure, active enjoyment. The pleasure you feel while doing something, eating a delicious meal, listening to music, engaging in conversation. These are good, but often temporary. Static pleasure, the pleasure of being in a state free from need or disturbance. This is the state of Ataraxia and Aponia. The calm after the storm, the satisfaction when hunger is gone, the peace of mind when fear is absent. Epicurus argued that static pleasure is the ultimate goal because it's more stable and enduring. Kinetic pleasures are often just the process of restoring ourselves to that balanced, static state. The real aim is to maximize the time spent in that peaceful, untroubled condition. So how do we achieve this state? By understanding and managing our desires. Epicurus brilliantly categorized them. Natural and necessary desires. These are essential for survival, comfort, and life itself. Things like basic food and water, shelter, simple clothing, rest, and crucially, friendship and community. Epicurus believed these desires are easy to satisfy for most people, and fulfilling them brings reliable, stable pleasure and removes pain.
Ow.
This is where we should focus most of our energy. Natural but unnecessary desires. These are variations on natural desires, but not essential. Think gourmet food instead of simple food, luxurious housing instead of basic shelter, fancy clothes. These can bring pleasure and aren't inherently bad, but Epicurus cautioned against becoming dependent on them. They are harder to satisfy consistently, can lead to comparison and anxiety, and don't fundamentally add more happiness than satisfying the necessary desires. Enjoy them if they come easily, but don't strive anxiously for them. Vain and empty desires. These are desires instilled by society and false beliefs, not by nature. Things like extreme wealth, political power, fame, immortality. Epicurus saw these as the most dangerous. Why? They are insatiable. there's always more fame or power to be had. They are difficult or impossible to achieve. They often bring more pain and anxiety than pleasure. They distract us from satisfying the natural and necessary desires that actually lead to tranquility. The wise person, he argued, actively works to minimize these desires. The key takeaway? Focus on fulfilling your natural and necessary desires simply. Be cautious about chasing unnecessary luxuries and actively reject the vain and empty desires that society pushes on us. This simplifies life dramatically and makes ataraxia far more attainable. Besides managing desires, Epicurus knew that deep-seated fears were major obstacles to tranquility. He offered what's sometimes called the tetrapharmakos, or four-part cure. Don't fear God. Epicurus wasn't necessarily an atheist, but he argued that if gods exist, they are perfect, self-sufficient beings. Such beings wouldn't be bothered with petty human affairs, punishing or rewarding us. They are models of ataraxia, perhaps, but not forces to be feared or appeased. Worrying about divine anger is unnecessary. Don't worry about death. This is perhaps his most famous argument. Reasoned. Death is nothing to us. For when we exist, death is not present, and when death is present, we no longer exist. You will never experience being dead. It is simply the cessation of sensation and consciousness. Why fear a state you cannot experience? Fear of death is a major source of anxiety that poisons life. Realizing it's nothing to us frees us to live fully now. What is good is easy to get. This refers back to the desires. True, lasting pleasure comes from satisfying the natural and necessary desires, which are fundamentally simple and attainable for most people with modest effort. Deep happiness doesn't require immense wealth or struggle. What is terrible is easy to endure. Epicurus acknowledged that physical pain exists. However, he argued that intense pain is usually short-lived. While chronic pain is typically milder and can be endured, especially by focusing the mind on past pleasures or the anticipation of future calm. While perhaps overly optimistic for modern sensibilities regarding chronic illness, the core idea is to cultivate mental resilience against unavoidable suffering. By internalizing these 4 points, Epicurus believed we could eliminate the primary mental disturbances: fear of gods and death and gain. Confidence in our ability to achieve good and endure hardship, paving the way for ataraxia. Beyond managing desires and fears, Epicurus highlighted a few crucial elements for a happy life. Friendship, this was paramount. Epicurus considered friendship one of the greatest sources of pleasure and security. Living in a community of trusted friends provides support, joy, and protection from the outside world. It's a core, natural, and necessary desire. True friends help us satisfy our needs and enhance our tranquility. Simple living and self-sufficiency. Reducing your needs and learning to provide for yourself minimizes dependence on fortune or the goodwill of others. This reduces anxiety about potential loss. Growing some food, fixing things yourself, living within your means, these contribute to peace of mind. Wisdom and prudence. Making wise choices, especially about desires and fears, is key. Philosophy wasn't just abstract theory for Epicurus. It was the practical tool for analyzing our beliefs and guiding our actions towards a pleasurable, tranquil life. Withdrawal from public life. Epicurus famously advised to live unknown. He suggested avoiding politics and the pursuit of public fame, as these arenas are breeding grounds for vain desires. Stress, conflict, and anxiety. The enemies of ataraxia. A quiet life among friends is preferable. Okay, ancient Greece is one thing. How can these ideas possibly help us navigate the complexities of modern life? Surprisingly well, actually. Counteracting consumer culture. Epicurus provides a powerful framework for resisting the constant pressure to buy more, achieve more, display more. By focusing on natural and necessary desires, we can find contentment and simplicity and free ourselves from the anxiety of keeping up. Ask, do I really need this? Or is it a vain desire fueled by advertising? It's managing digital overload. The constant influx of news, social media comparison, and notifications is a major source of modern anxiety. An Epicurean approach might involve consciously limiting exposure. curating feeds towards positivity and connection, and practicing digital withdrawal to cultivate mental calm. Perhaps swapping screen time for conversation with a friend. Cultivating real connections. In an era of superficial online interactions, Epicurus reminds us of the profound pleasure and security found in genuine friendship. Prioritizing quality time with trusted friends over accumulating followers or networking contacts is a deeply Epicurean act. Finding joy in the everyday. Epicureanism encourages us to appreciate the simple, readily available pleasures: a warm drink, a comfortable chair, sunshine, a good conversation, the absence of pain. Practicing gratitude for these things shifts our focus from what we lack to the pleasures we already possess. Rethinking ambition. It doesn't mean abandoning goals, but evaluating them. Is this ambition driven by a natural desire or a vain one? Will the pursuit bring more stress than the potential reward is worth? Can I pursue my goals in a way that prioritizes tranquility? It's worth repeating. Epicureanism isn't about lazy, unrestrained indulgence. That's the caricature. It's a disciplined, mindful approach to maximizing lasting pleasure by making wise choices. Minimizing pain and fear, cultivating friendships, and appreciating simple things. It requires prudence, self-awareness, and sometimes saying no to fleeting temptations in favor of long-term peace of mind. The modern world often sells us a complicated, expensive, and exhausting version of happiness. Epicurus, from his quiet garden over to millennia ago, offers a radical alternative. Happiness is simpler, closer, and more attainable than we think. It lies in understanding ourselves, managing our desires wisely, overcoming our deepest fears, cherishing our friends, and finding joy in the natural, necessary elements of life. It's about cultivating an inner peace, Ataraxia, that can sustain us, regardless of external chaos. Maybe it's time to step off the treadmill for a moment, to ask yourself, what desires are truly driving me? What fears are holding me back from tranquility? Where can I find simple, reliable pleasure today? How can I better cultivate my friendships? You don't need to move to a garden in Greece. You can start right where you are with small, conscious choices. Choose the simple meal. Choose the walk in the park over scrolling. Choose the deep conversation over the status update. Choose to appreciate the absence of pain and worry right now. This is the gentle revolution of Epicurus, discovering that the most profound pleasures might just be the simplest ones, waiting patiently for us to notice. What do you think of the Epicurean path to happiness? Do these ancient ideas help in your modern life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this exploration helpful, please like and subscribe for more philosophical insights. Thank you for watching, and may you find much tranquility.